There is nothing more maddening than waiting and waiting and waiting for a UPS delivery. But if you know the weird rules their drivers have to follow, it's at least a little easier to understand what's going on.
In 2010, UPS ditched its iconic slogan, "What can Brown do for you?" in favor of the more emotional and efficiency-oriented "We Heart Logistics." In 2015, the company cut the heart out of the equation, no longer professing its love for logistics and instead adopting the motto, "United Problem Solvers." While the latter two slogans sound less friendly, you could argue that they better reflect one of the unifying philosophies of the United Parcel Service. Time is money, and if you want to save both, you can't waste a single second. In 2014, UPS employee Jack Levis explained to NPR, just 1 minute per driver per day over the course of a year adds up to $14.5 million. The pressure to shave off minutes from deliveries is increased by the number of stops UPS makes. For instance, according to the Chicago Tribune, in 2017, the company was slated to deliver 750 million packages worldwide between Thanksgiving and Christmas alone. To ensure the fastest deliveries humanly possible, and perhaps even superhumanly possible, UPS equips its trucks with sensors that track every movement a driver makes. According to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, trucks aren't air-conditioned because the average UPS delivery person opens their cargo bay doors 130 times a day. Similarly, during deliveries, drivers leave the passenger door open in order to make leaving the vehicle more efficient. Considering how often the doors are open during deliveries, it makes financial sense not to equip delivery vehicles with air conditioning. But that reasoning seems to assume the drivers won't stop mid-delivery to cool off on those long summer days when the sun seems determined to boil you alive.
The fun fucks.
According to NBC News, UPS drivers have recorded temperatures in the truck as high as 152 degrees, and as Live Science notes, hyperthermia sets in for most people after only about 10 minutes in extremely humid 140-degree heat. NBC also reports that various medical records and interviews showed that UPS workers have convulsed, fainted, and landed in the emergency room with heat-induced kidney failure. So while UPS's candy bar-colored trucks won't melt, the humans steering them probably feel like they're drowning in hot chocolate when Mother Nature cranks up the heat. In August 2016, 59-year-old James Klink suffered heat stroke and kidney failure after several consecutive days working in his brutally hot truck. He spoke to NBC about his terrifying experience.
My vision was blurred. I was seeing stars. I was throwing up. I just honestly could not drive that vehicle safely anymore.
In 2018, Klink's wife Teresa started an online petition demanding that UPS provide air-conditioned trucks for its drivers. The company expressed appreciation for its drivers' efforts, but noted that, quote, "Working outdoors throughout the year is the nature of the job." UPS only keeps a small fleet of air-conditioned trucks for trips that cross the California desert. But that's no consolation to drivers in other trucks when every road feels like a flaming desert and their minds start to play tricks on them. UPS is a well-oiled machine, and as the cogs behind the wheel, drivers are expected to be as efficient as mechanically possible. The obvious problem with treating people like machine parts is that they aren't hardwired to function like robots. Employees need time for basic human functions like refueling their bodies and, when nature calls, using the bathroom, which is something most robots don't have to worry about. In 2015, an anonymous UPS driver identified as Bill told The Nation that something as simple as using the restroom was considered, in his words, stealing time from the company. Bathroom visits weren't the only kind of waste the company frowned upon. Bill also said, "If you turn the truck on before you put on your seatbelt, that's wasting gas." Sensors recorded when his foot was on the brake, how far he backed up, everything. And UPS isn't alone in monitoring every millisecond of an employee's day. In 2013, FedEx warehouse employee Reynalda Cruz suffered inflammation in her arm because of a scanner that tracked her every movement, and when she slowed down because of the pain, she was ordered to speed up. Similarly, according to The Verge, Amazon automatically tracks warehouse workers and fires them for not meeting productivity quotas. Unfortunately, when companies obsess over cutting costs, staff members often pay the price and, in the end, do you really want your packages delivered by an overworked and underappreciated employee?
Sounds broken.
Most likely, sir. I'll bet it was something nice, though.
Driving for UPS isn't a simple job. If anything, even the most passionate UPS driver would tell you it's a complex career that requires you to learn the so-called 340 methods. That also means, naturally, that UPS driving isn't a job where you just fill out an application, smile at the manager, watch PowerPoint presentations, and receive the keys. You have to go through UPS boot camp. Once you've finished some online coursework, you're sent to one of UPS's training facilities, and depending on what position you're gunning for, these hardcore classes last from 5 to 9 days. What do they teach? Hazard avoidance and management, of course. New workers are trained to be the safest drivers on the road. Efficiency rules are etched into every driver's brain. Trainees learn how to load trucks the fastest way possible, and most amusingly have to run through a slip and fall course where they learn how to move quickly across ice without falling. And so the name of the game is efficiency, from the warehouse to the roads. Every UPS driver has been through serious training at Integrad, so they definitely know their stuff. If someone were to first tell you that UPS drivers have to follow strict rules as far as how they climb in and out of their vehicles, you'd probably think it was insane. Unlike some of UPS's other methods, though, their requirement for drivers to follow the so-called 3 points of contact routine is actually a good safety measure. What this means in practice is that when a driver gets in or out of their truck, they should have one hand on the handrail, one foot on the step, and another foot on the ground, every time without fail. Doing this consistently reduces stress on the ankles. Keep in mind, UPS drivers have to do this hundreds of times a day. Using improper posture could do a surprising amount of damage. In general, 3 points of contact is the safest way to enter or exit trucks, and the multiple anchor points inherent to this method lowers the impact of injuries caused by slips and falls. Consider, if you have one foot on icy ground and it slips, your hand on the handrail will catch you, as will your foot on the non-slippery step. UPS drivers operate on strict time limits, and that means it can be really difficult to find the time to do essential human tasks like, taking a pee. It's generally recommended for UPS drivers to plan their bathroom breaks. For example, if you've got to load up on gas, that's a great time to visit the bathroom. If the tracking software shows drivers taking too long, they will be accused of stealing time, as well as messing up their stops per on-road hour counts, and explanations will be demanded. Latter justifications probably don't make for fun conversations.
Ira, I have to pee. I'm not doing it here.
No, he is not doing it there.
At least one driver told the Tampa Bay Times that he and others frequently urinate in the truck, using cups, bottles, and so on. When asked about this claim, of course, UPS denied it. When you think of UPS, the first image that pops to mind is probably a big brown truck. However, if you work for UPS, you better not call it a truck. For those on the inside, these boxy vehicles are strictly referred to as package cars. To be fair, it's unlikely that if a driver calls the vehicle a truck, they'll be reprimanded. However, UPS takes their package cars seriously, and they're also serious about calling them package cars, as seen in their promotional materials highlighting the evolution of the vehicle over the past century. If you've ever imagined that one day you might have a UPS package car of your own, forget it. UPS takes intensive care to make sure nobody gets a retired vehicle. Most of them are turned into scrap metal once a company has finished using them. Not too long ago, UPS required all drivers to carry the car keys on their ring finger. You can probably guess the reasoning. Unlike you, who spends 20 minutes searching for your keys every time you leave the house, UPS didn't want their drivers to waste any time with such nonsense.
Hope you like walking, though, because I took your car keys and I flushed them down the toilet.
And so if the keys are always on the ring fingers, the keys never get lost. This rule also enabled drivers to position the key with their index finger, put the car in ignition, and pull it out in one swift motion. These days, though, the ring finger rule is gone. It's not that UPS got more lax about it, but rather that technology evolved, and they realized it sped up the process even further if the regular keys were replaced with fancy schmancy key fobs. The switch to fob saves UPS 2 seconds per delivery, for a grand total of 6 minutes a day. Another plus to fobs? UPS drivers now snap them to their belts, so they should never get lost. When UPS boasts about their 340 methods, it applies to a lot of details that you might think are mundane. Every one of these methods has been studied and tested for decades and proven to shave seconds off of every delivery to ensure that the company can squeeze out as many deliveries as humanly possible. One of these methods, indeed, is all about where the driver keeps their pen. This tiny detail is simple enough. If you're a driver, you must keep your pen in your pocket. Which one? Depends on hand dominance, of course. Left-handed drivers must keep their pen in their right pocket, and right-handed ones need to use the left pocket. That's breast pockets only, by the way. While taken on its own, this rule would seem ridiculously fussy. The fact that it functions alongside hundreds of similar such policies points toward the ethic of UPS as a whole, which is a company that prizes efficiency above all else. Has your local UPS driver ever been frustrated about how narrow your driveway is, or the fact that there are so many cars parked in it that they have to switch into reverse in order to get out? UPS policy discourages drivers from backing up as much as possible. A little backing out is bad enough, and long backouts are especially frowned upon, according to drivers posting their own experiences on the Brown Cafe message board. The reason for this anti-backup agenda is, of course, safety-related. As you've probably noticed, whether from the time your parent backed up into the mailbox or the time you backed up into your favorite tree, reversing a vehicle often causes accidents.
We have more people on the roads. We have more road construction. That is a legitimate safety concern out there, and the drivers will tell you this.
Unless you think that you can convince your UPS driver to back up on your driveway by using your unbeatable charm, think again. Since a driver's vehicle tracks their every move, their superiors will come down hard on them anytime the computer records them as going into reverse. One truck driver told NPR, "They know exactly how many times you back up and where you're backing up, and they also know the distance. They know how far you're backing and the speed that you're backing at." Most of the stricter UPS rules come straight from UPS. At least one rule, however, comes from higher up the chain, and it's a good rule, which UPS has previously tried to flout. Who could be more powerful than UPS, you ask? The United States Department of Transportation, who strictly forbids commercial drivers from working more than 60-hour weeks for safety reasons that should be blatantly obvious.
The cruelty of UPS center managers here in Jacksonville has been on full display whenever drivers have filed grievances over excessive overtime.
Now, this 60-hour max does result in some hiccups, such as package delays, since a driver has to come back to the hub if he hits the big 60. However, in late 2017, KATU News reported that UPS was responding to the surge in holiday package deliveries by pushing drivers to work 70-hour weeks. Thankfully, the UPS delivery driver unions took legal action against the company. According to labor notes, unions in New England rallied in the parking lot as hundreds of drivers refused to start their trucks, demanding that if the company didn't value their lives, they weren't going to value their requirements. When managers protested, the workers stood their ground. The solidarity of the New England drivers won against UPS, and these drivers got to keep the 60-hour weeks they wanted, instead of kowtowing to the forced overtime that had previously been demanded from them.
And I almost forgot. I'm also going to need you to go ahead and come in on Sunday, too, okay?
As the clean-shaven norms of the past have been done away with, most companies have relaxed their draconian rules regarding beards, including, UPS. It's worth mentioning here because it was a hard and fast rule at UPS for a long time. The package delivery company used to enforce a strict moratorium on male drivers possessing beards and/or long hair. Now, on a small scale, this resulted in situations wherein super qualified applicants were rejected for not shaving. On a bigger scale, UPS's beard ban amounted to religious discrimination, since employees who wear beards for religious reasons were pressured to conform to the Ward Cleaver standard.
At first blush, it seems to be what mainstream scientists refer to as totally made up, but it's true. When at all possible, delivery drivers won't make left turns. But why, you might ask? And if you did ask, it would be a good question. Is it out of fear? Some leftover superstition from days long past? A deep respect for folks like Derek Zoolander?
I'm not an ambi-turner. It's a problem I had since I was a baby. I can't turn left.
Well, prepare to be flabbergasted and get ready to have your mind blown, because it turns out that the reasoning is actually grounded in genuine logic, reason, and science. According to CNN, UPS saves an estimated 10 million gallons of fuel every year just by eliminating left turns. They also shave miles off of every route, allowing for more packages to be delivered, saving money on man hours and, in the long run, maintenance. The grand total? By their own estimates, they save somewhere between $300 and $400 million per year by finding the most efficient delivery routes designed around never making a left turn. Yes, it sounds impossible, but the folks at Mythbusters actually tested the theory that skipping left turns could save on fuel and found that, in a single route, a truck making exclusively right turns used around a third less fuel than one that sat waiting to take a left. So should we all be avoiding left turns in our daily lives in an attempt to see what Brown can do for us? Funny you should mention it, but as a matter of fact, yeah, we probably should. See, as it turns out, left turns are kind of the bane of modern traffic, at least in parts of the world where people drive on the right side of the road. And that's about 65% of all drivers worldwide, so it's a pretty big deal. Think about your daily commute. Turning right is quicker, since you can generally do it at a red light. There's also the matter of safety. In 2014, the Washington Post reported that more than 50% of crossing path collisions involved a left turn, while less than 6% involved hanging a right. More shockingly, over a third of fatal motorcycle accidents were due to an automobile unexpectedly making a left-hand turn in front of the biker. Through the use of routing software programmed to eliminate as many left turns from their drivers' daily grinds as possible, UPS minimizes the risk of their employees causing congestion or being involved in potentially deadly accidents. And both of those are even bigger wins than saving a few $100 million. While the idea of nearly eliminating an entire direction of travel from a delivery driver's arsenal might seem novel, it's actually a method that the company has been using for decades. CNN reported that UPS has been utilizing a right-turn-heavy system since the 1970s. Since then, they've developed a routing optimization software program called Orion that, by comparison, makes your GPS look like an old-timey farmhand giving you directions. Orion, which took more than a decade to develop, takes insane amounts of data that most mapping software wouldn't consider, making thousands of calculations per minute to create the most efficient multi-point route possible. The results? According to UPS, millions of dollars saved and a reduction of 100,000 metric tons of carbon emissions per year, leading to cleaner air for everyone. Strange, but true.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!